Welcome to the Bright Ideas Podcast.
Let's talk about the first deal for a minute. So, are you able to disclose what the brand is?
Sure. Yeah, it's Flathead Straws. It's actually, I use it every day. The number one silicone reusable straw on Amazon.
Okay. And Flathead Straws, so you bought them, you closed on the deal when?
January 1st, 2020. So,
okay. And what were they doing in monthly revenue back then?
I think they were close to $700,000 or $800,000 in the trailing 12 months. So not monthly, but for the full year,
or actually
almost $1 million business.
$1 million business.
Yeah, and I remember they were about $200,000 of SDE. Was the number we paid more attention to, right? We do a multiple of the profit revenue.
And so the founders of this company, now, are they still with you on an earnout or are they long gone?
Nope. We had a 1-year earnout on that. And he actually made a bunch of money on the earnout. We did quite well with the brand. And he's not involved anymore.
Okay. So there's this guy, he's launched this brand. He's basically sounds like maybe a solo entrepreneur. He grew it to $750,000. And now he's at a point where he's probably bumping into some of his own limitations. He's probably bumping into the fact that he's got to hire more people that maybe he doesn't want to do, and or he's bumping, although on this product maybe not much, but capital issues with respect to the ability to fund inventory. Were any of these things reasons why he wanted to sell?
Yeah, it was twofold. It was a bit of capital constraints. Like, these businesses are cash intensive. You're putting down deposits in Asia, well before products are sellable.
Months and months before you get paid.
Yeah. And so the business had grown really rapidly. So over the summer of that year, he'd been air freighting a whole bunch of stuff in, rush orders, paying a lot of money. And so his actual cash balance was not moving as much as the business would, asset rich and cash poor type of thing. So that was part of it. And then the other one was, I think, frankly, this was way bigger and more successful than he thought it would be. And he kind of wanted to cash in at the top, right? He felt like this had already exceeded his expectations. And so why not take a buyout now? And then I think I don't know if he ended up closing it, but he wanted to acquire, he had his eyes on some rental property near him for a while and it was available. Yeah. And so he wanted the cash to go and invest in that other.
Got it. Okay. So I went down that rabbit hole because I know that there are people listening to this who maybe have a young brand and they're thinking that because they've never grown a brand before, they don't know the potholes that are ahead of them. Even for successful brands, there's all these things that are going to come up and potentially really hamstring your ability to get past a certain point. Like, it's not like you're going up an escalator. Growing any business is like walking upstairs, and only sometimes the stairs from the third to the fourth stair, it's a huge step. Whereas from the second to the third stair was not a very big step. It's not a linear process. And I wanted to highlight that because if someone is listening and they're running a brand and they're coming into that, they might be listening to you and thinking, well, maybe I should just be selling my company to this guy instead, or maybe I need to talk to somebody or raise some money or what have you. But these are very real issues that all of us entrepreneurs have to deal with on an ongoing basis. All right. So now you've closed 25, 6, 7 deals. We all are not very good at things when we're doing them the first time. We make lots of mistakes. When I say we, I mean me and maybe other people, but I know me because I live with me every day. And then I get better and I figure things out and I dial things in and I make better systems and I make fewer mistakes and, things get better. Looking back with hindsight, what are some of the lessons that you learned about acquiring businesses from, say, the first 3? I know you said you got faster at it, but from the first 3 or 4 to like the last 3, what are some of the takeaways? Because some people are going to be listening to this and they're thinking, well, I'm never going to start an Amazon integrator or roll up or whatever, but I like the idea of buying a business and they've never done it before. And I'm trying to add value for that member of the audience.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of things. Same as you, right? It's hard. Every time you do something the first time, you end up making a lot of mistakes. Where to start? One thought that strikes me right off the top is that these are the entrepreneurs, typically their most valuable asset, right? Think about selling your home and multiply that by 10. And so obviously the dollars and cents are important, but you need to develop trust with the entrepreneur, and you need to have credibility with them. Honestly, our first couple businesses, and we stay in touch with a lot of the entrepreneurs, and I'm so thankful that those people sold to us, because frankly, it was pretty clear we didn't know what we were doing at that point, right? To them, whether or not, maybe we tried to cover it up, but at the end of the day, if you're selling your business or you're thinking about buying a business, showing the entrepreneur that you know what you're doing. And now, right, we're at a point where we can introduce an entrepreneur to our supply chain team, to our advertising team. We have a lot of credibility and depth in these spaces, and we really know what we're talking about. But early on, if you're somebody who's thinking about buying your first business, really make sure you're a student of the industry, because from the entrepreneur's perspective, especially if there's an earnout or some sort of structure like that, they want to know that you know what you're doing and you're credible. And even, take away the earnout, closing risk is a real thing. You're right. It's easy to have fun conversations about, oh, I'll pay you $5 million for your business. Everybody gets starry eyed. And then, you get into it, and the entrepreneur's fear is, I'm going to spend all this time doing this, and then this person's going to get cold feet, or they're going to try to retread the deal and give me less money for it, or they're going to nickel and dime me about we talked to one acquisition we made recently, had an offer from somebody else they turned down, and the person was trying to add in a salary for this person because you don't have a VA and you should have a VA, so I'm going to subtract $50K from your SDE, right? And it's right, nobody wants to deal with that shit. And so,
that's bullshit.
And so, just developing a relationship, letting them know that you're serious, and that you're serious because you actually know what you're talking about, and you know the industry, right. Every business has warts, and if you're a buyer who's going to run away at the first sign of a wart, then you're probably not a serious buyer. So developing that trust with the seller, and letting them know that you know what you're doing and you know what you're talking about is really important. And then, I could go on for hours about the long list of things we've discovered post-close that we add to our diligence checklist. There's no perfect recipe there.
Give me an example of one.
Oh man, we had a seller who had just launched with a new manufacturer, and we got excited because it was lower cost. Already had a container on the water from China, and so it was going to be here soon. And so we diligenced everything. Everything was great. We closed. The container arrived in LA. We put it directly into Amazon. The seller hadn't QA'd it at all. It was really low quality product. Reviews went down. We got shut off by Amazon for NCX issues. Right. It was, and then it's really hard. We had our returns going back to Amazon FCs, and they automatically were putting them back into stock. Oh. And so it was really hard to actually clear out all this inventory. Right. And so luckily we learned that. We actually then had another acquisition. This was March of 2020. Right. So this is early. We had another one over the summer, same thing. And the seller was saying, hey, I already have another manufacturer. The order is going in. They're going to ship it tomorrow. And we said, no, stop the order. It's okay if we go out of stock for a week. We want a sample flown in. We're going to QC the sample before the stuff hits the water. Yeah. And I was so thankful we did, right? There's a bunch of issues, and we stopped it from going on the water before it got shipped. We cleared the QC issues, and we got it going, right? So things like that just in general, you need to make sure that there's no changes to the business that are in flight that haven't settled through the system. Because if existing manufacturer, they've been selling that for years usually. And so you can see the reviews, you can see the return rate, you can see all these things, and you can have confidence that as long as you can maintain that relationship, you'll be okay. That's one. Other things, we bought a company who had been buying reviews. And actually, Amazon's getting scary good about this. So when we found out about it from a notice from Amazon. We contacted the seller. He was very transparent. Once we found it, he was transparent about it. He was like, yeah, you're right.
Once he got caught, he was very transparent about it. How nice of him.
Yeah. And we closed, right? We'd already released escrow. But the thing was, surprisingly, because you pay per review, he actually had the list of every review he paid for and the order it was associated with. And Amazon had already deleted 98% of the reviews that he had paid for, right? So the good news is they're scary good at this. And so the actual rating that we had was the real rating, right? So it didn't actually end up being, which is a scary, heart-stopping moment when we got that notice from Amazon. We submitted a POA. We did the right things, and it was all fine. But it was one of these moments where we're like, all right, let's push just a little bit harder on this one, pre-close. It's a lot of stuff like that, right? And there's always the unknown unknowns, and that's why, early on, if you're a buyer, people might push you to an all cash offer, and maybe that's what you have to do to get the deal done if you don't have any credibility in the market. But getting an earnout in place from a buyer's perspective is really important. One, because it aligns your incentives. Like, we have entrepreneurs reach out to us all the time saying, like, hey, did you notice this? Did you see this thing? I heard about this new exciting thing. I want to make sure you're doing it on my brand. And we love that, right? It's helpful because in general, I'd say at this point, 90% of the stuff we already have our eyes on because we're growing. But especially early on, it was helpful to have that aligned interest where they want us to be successful. But it's also helpful in the downside case of, right, if you're a first-time buyer, there are real unknown unknowns that you just can't uncover if you've never run a business like this before. And so I would really encourage you strongly to put some earnout or deferred payment structure into the acquisition because, right, it's really hard to know until you're running the business for a while.